Yes.
Merci, Monsieur Dickey. Peut-être, Monsieur Page.
Thank you, Mr. Dickey. Mr. Page, I would like to benefit from your expertise on cultivation of marijuana. To sum up a bit, it's either we want to not regulate the number of plants at all, and based on what you said, that would be to allow the cultivation, like tomato plants or tobacco plants. There's no limits on what you can cultivate. Either you do or you don't, and there are no limits. If you have ground, land, it doesn't matter. So there's that extreme, and then there's the other extreme where we ban cannabis cultivation on an individual basis. Is there not can't we strike a balance in what we can allow? Or is it just too complicated to legislate the height and to get into the details? Because the details are quite complicated to manage. We've heard this before, but I'd like to know your opinion between the two extremes. What's the sweet spot?
I do think that we can strike a balance between sort of a free-for-all, wide-open, you could plant 10 acres of cannabis if you wanted, and very restrictive limits. And I guess what I was getting at before is that I do agree that, some plant limits for personal production are appropriate, and that we do see those in, say, U.S. states like Colorado and Oregon, where cannabis legalization has occurred. It's often 6 plants, not 4. I guess where I was going is that, we want to have a limitation that also takes into account the cultivation realities of cannabis. So the idea that you could have a limit on the number of plants in flower, which are really the producers of the drug, and if that was to be 4 plants in flower, I think I could support that. But there should be some sort of leeway that you could have these additional 4 or 6 plants in vegetative state, non-flowering state. Where I
just one more question. I don't have lots of time more. Is it easy to have those kind of culture of cannabis? I never grown any cannabis on my own, but is it as easy as tomatoes? Is it? What is the?
Yeah, it's as easy as tomatoes, though a lot of growers make all sorts of complexities with cuttings and hydroponics and all this kind of stuff. But in general, it's a weed. It grows easily. Where I was going, though, was my recommendation around plant height was that's a hard one to regulate. The plant does grow, and limit the number of plants and maybe the number of flowering plants. But within that, after that, not get into this. Oh, we hit 100 centimeters, and that's suddenly illegal.
How can you regulate that? Is there a way to regulate that?
Well, as your colleague asked before, could you expand that to 150 centimeters or 200 centimeters and encompass more of the sort of typical growing that might occur, and therefore Canadians wouldn't be offside if their plant is sort of inched up in those directions? I would say, why do we give, police carry guns and all sorts of handcuffs and things, but do they have to have tape measures as well? And that's sort of where we're going with 100 centimeters. Just count the number of plants and don't worry about how tall they get.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.